So let's dive into the fascinating history of sassafras, which was once a key ingredient in root beer and has been widely used in traditional medicine and culinary applications. Sassafras is a deciduous tree native to eastern North America, and its roots, bark, and leaves have been used for centuries by Native Americans for various medicinal purposes. They believed that sassafras had numerous health benefits, such as treating fevers, inflammation, and digestive issues. As Europeans began to colonize America, they were introduced to sassafras and its many uses. In the 16th and 17th centuries, sassafras was considered a valuable commodity, and it was actually one of the first exports from the New World to Europe. Europeans used sassafras in various remedies, and it was even believed to be a cure for syphilis at one point. Now let's talk about how sassafras became a key ingredient in root beer. Root beer is a carbonated soft drink that was originally brewed using the roots and bark of the sassafras tree. The first recorded recipe for root beer dates back to 1866, when pharmacist Charles Elmer Hyers created a concoction made from sassafras, sarsaparilla, and other herbs and spices. He called it Hyers Root Tea, but later changed the name to root beer to make it more appealing to a wider audience. Sassafras quickly became the defining flavor of root beer, and its popularity spread throughout the United States. It was often sold in pharmacies as a medicinal tonic, and many people believed that it had health benefits due to its natural ingredients. In addition to its use in root beer, sassafras was also used in traditional Southern American cuisine. The leaves of the sassafras tree, known as file, were used as a thickening agent and flavoring in dishes like gumbo. Sassafras tea, made from the bark of the tree, was also a popular beverage in various parts of the United States. So as you can see, sassafras has quite an interesting history as a key ingredient in root beer and its various uses in traditional medicine and culinary applications. However, as we'll discuss next, the discovery of a potential carcinogen in sassafras oil would eventually lead to its ban in food and beverages. Now that we've explored the history of sassafras, let's take a closer look at the chemical composition of sassafras oil, particularly the presence of safrole, a compound found to be a potential carcinogen. Sassafras oil is derived from the roots and bark of the sassafras tree, and it contains a variety of chemical compounds. One of the most notable compounds in sassafras oil is safrole, which is responsible for the distinctive aroma and flavor of sassafras. Safrole is a naturally occurring organic compound, and it can also be found in other plants, such as nutmeg, cinnamon, and black pepper. However, in the 1960s, researchers discovered that safrole was potentially carcinogenic, meaning it could cause cancer in laboratory animals. This discovery led to further studies on the safety of safrole and its presence in sassafras oil. The studies found that when safrole was administered in high doses to lab animals, it could cause liver cancer. Now, it's important to note that the studies were conducted using very high doses of safrole, much higher than what would typically be consumed in food and beverages containing sassafras. However, the findings raised concerns about the safety of sassafras oil and its use as a flavoring agent in products like root beer. This discovery of safrole as a potential carcinogen would have significant implications for the use of sassafras in food and beverages, ultimately leading to its ban, which we'll discuss in the next section. So, stay tuned as we delve into the research and studies that led to the ban of sassafras and its impact on the root beer industry. Now that we discussed the chemical composition of sassafras oil in the presence of safrole, let's examine the research and studies that ultimately led to the ban of sassafras in food and beverages, particularly in the United States. As we mentioned earlier, in the 1960s, researchers discovered that safrole was potentially carcinogenic. Further studies on the safety of safrole confirmed these findings, showing that high doses of safrole could cause liver cancer in laboratory animals. Although the doses used in these studies were much higher than what would typically be consumed in food and beverages containing sassafras, the findings raised concerns about the safety of sassafras oil and its use as a flavoring agent. In response to these concerns, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, conducted its own research on the safety of sassafras and safrole. Based on the available evidence, the FDA concluded that safrole was indeed a potential carcinogen, and that sassafras posed a public health risk. As a result, in 1960, the FDA banned the use of sassafras oil and safrole as food additives and flavoring agents in the United States. This ban effectively removed sassafras from root beer and other food products that once contained the ingredient. While sassafras and safrole are still not permitted in food and beverages in the U.S., sassafras is still allowed for use in certain medicinal products, as long as the safrole content is removed or significantly reduced. The ban on sassafras had a significant impact on the root beer industry, as well as the traditional culinary practices that relied on the ingredient. In our next section, we'll investigate the effects of the sassafras ban on the root beer industry and the development of alternative flavorings and recipes. So stay tuned as we continue to explore the story of sassafras, the banned plant behind root beer's original flavor. Now that we've discussed the research and studies that led to the ban of sassafras in food and beverages, let's investigate the impact of this ban on the root beer industry and the development of alternative flavorings and recipes. As we know, sassafras was a key ingredient in root beer, giving the beverage its distinctive flavor. However, with the ban of sassafras by the FDA, manufacturers of root beer were forced to find alternative ingredients to replicate the unique taste of their products. This led to the development of new flavorings and recipes that no longer relied on sassafras oil. One of the most common alternatives to sassafras in root beer is the use of artificial flavorings, such as methyl salicylate, which is derived from wintergreen oil. This compound provides a similar taste profile to sassafras, although some argue that it lacks the same depth and complexity of flavor. Other manufacturers opted for natural ingredients such as sarsaparilla, licorice root, and vanilla to create a new flavor profile for their root beer products. In addition to the root beer industry, the ban on sassafras also impacted traditional culinary practices that relied on the ingredient. For example, the use of sassafras leaves, known as file, as a thickening agent and flavoring in dishes like gumbo has become less common, with cooks turning to alternative ingredients like okra and rue. Despite the development of alternative flavorings and recipes, some people still long for the original taste of sassafras in their root beer and other products. This has led to an ongoing debate and potential for the reintroduction of sassafras in food and beverages, which we will discuss in the next section. So stay tuned as we delve into the risk-benefit analysis and cultural significance of sassafras and its potential comeback. Lastly, let's discuss the ongoing debate and potential for the reintroduction of sassafras in food and beverages, taking into account the risk-benefit analysis and its cultural significance. Since the ban of sassafras in the United States, there's been an ongoing debate among enthusiasts, researchers, and industry professionals about whether it should be reintroduced as a food and beverage ingredient. Some argue that the risk of using sassafras, particularly in small amounts as a flavoring agent, is minimal compared to the potential benefits of preserving cultural practices and traditional recipes. On the other hand, there are those who maintain that the potential carcinogenic properties of safrole, even if the risk is considered low, should not be ignored. They argue that the public's health should be prioritized, and alternative flavorings and ingredients should continue to be used in place of sassafras. In recent years, there have been some developments in the production of sassafras extracts that are free of safrole or contain significantly reduced levels of the compound. These safrole-free sassafras products could potentially be used as a safer alternative, allowing for the reintroduction of sassafras in food and beverages without the associated health risks. However, the debate about the reintroduction of sassafras is far from settled, and there are still many questions and concerns that need to be addressed. The key to moving forward will likely involve a careful risk-benefit analysis, considering not only the potential health risks, but also the cultural significance and traditional uses of sassafras. In conclusion, the story of sassafras is a fascinating one, illustrating the complexities and challenges that arise when balancing public health, cultural practices, and historical traditions. As the debate continues, it will be interesting to see how the future of sassafras and its role in our culinary and medicinal landscape unfolds.